Hi, my name is Adri, and I'm going to be telling you a story about love and architecture.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and I have a story about a science experiment that had truly earth-shattering consequences.
And I'm Billy, and I have a story about a domed church. Domes.
Well, there you go, domes. Find out how all of these stories tell you about domes in this episode of History Bluffs. Welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. It's where truth is stranger than fiction. I'm your announcer, Adam, and this is your host, it's Chris!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of History Bluffs. We thank you for joining us, and we thank our lovely historians for joining us. And as always, Adam, our tech extraordinaire who makes things go.
Hey.
All of you, and welcome back to everyone. Very fun show on tap for you tonight. As Adam said, our inspiration is the word dome. So each of our historians are going to regale us with a story inspired by the word dome. And let's meet them, shall we? Adam, if you don't mind, let's bring up four square settings. So I'll start with you, Adri. Hello, Adri. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. Hello, Chris, Billy, Melissa. Pleasure.
Hello.
Adri, when I think of domes, the first thing that pops into my head are sports stadiums and domed sports stadiums.
Yep.
But what's another type of dome that you might think of?
So for me, kind of similar to yours, I think of my high school. We had a dome that was like a really weird geographical, not geometry, some kind of shape. And it was painted gold, and you can see it from the highway. So I always think about that. That was like my first inclination with dome.
All right, very nice, very nice.
What is the word I was trying to say? Geographical?
Geometric.
No.
Geodesic?
Yes, that's it.
Geometric.
Apologies. I'm a historian.
Yeah,
Not a
no
shape
worries.
historian.
It might be geodesic dome, which is actually what I used to design. That's a geodesic dome right there.
It was
the title
similar
card.
to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, except it was geometric.
Geometric. I'm not a dome professional. I will be after this show.
And
I
welcome,
am a
Melissa.
domey.
Hello, Melissa. Welcome back.
Hello.
And Melissa, when you think of all the famous domes in the world, what's one that one of the first that pops into your head?
Oh, you know what? I think of like one of the recent Avengers movies that had Thor, and he was like fighting in a dome. And I know that's not a real dome, but that's what I think of.
All right.
Oh, definitely Thor Ragnarok was the.
Yes,
he fought the
thank you.
Hulk. Yeah, I got your back.
And there's quite, you also had, what was it, Mad Max fought in Thunderdome as well.
Well, that's the one I was going to use, Thunderdome.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead.
All right. And then hello, Billy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Billy is
Hey,
joining
Billy's
us.
here. He's
Thought I
there.
would get around
No, there it is. No, it's solid. You're here. Thank you.
And Billy, what is something that you, if you had an extra dome, what was something that you would cover with a dome?
I would cover. I know what I would cover. I would build a pickleball court in my backyard because I just started playing, and it's a phenomenal sport. Very active,
Really?
very good. And I put a dome over it because of the summers in Florida. It's raining right now, actually. So
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. Yeah, you can't ball the pickle when it's raining.
you
That's
cannot.
correct. That is correct. Well, welcome, Billy. Welcome, Adri. Welcome, Melissa. And Adam, you
Yeah.
mentioned I stole your thunder
You
by
did.
taking the
You
Thunderdome.
you stole my thunder.
But what is your what's your best memory of the Thunderdome?
Oh, well, I mean, Tina Turner telling us what's up. I
There you
mean,
go.
she was the boss lady of that dome, and she told
Yes,
everybody
indeed.
how it was going to go.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
And speaking of telling everybody how it's going to go, why don't you play Tina Turner right now and tell us how this show's going to go with the rules?
Oh, man, I love that part. Let's do it. Okay, we've got a game show, folks. I'm going to bring up a rules card. So if you can see, There's the rules, but some people listen on our audio version of the podcast. So, Chris, tell them what they are.
All right. So, as we said at the top of the show, our historians are inspired by the topic. Tonight's topic is the word dome, D-O-M-E. And the three historians are going to tell us a story inspired by that word dome. Two of our historians are telling true stories, and those true stories are factual stories indeed. And then one of our historians is bluffing. And the Bluffs story, yes, the Bluffs story is fictional. The premise of their story is fictional. Now, there may be some truisms in their story. They may talk about real people in the world. They may talk about real places in the world or real things in the world. But the premise of their story is false, and that is the bluff. We ask no audience to help. And by that, we mean please don't debunk any of our stories in the first couple of rounds. This is a 3-round show. And by the end of the show, we will have an opportunity to make an accusation who we think is bluffing. So we ask the audience not to debunk anyone, and no help from the audience until the end of the show. So with that in mind, there are 3 rounds, as I mentioned, and they get successively shorter. First round is 75 seconds. The second round is 60 seconds. And the final round is 45 seconds for our historians to wrap up their stories.
That is a
and then
short
by the
round.
end of the show, we will find out who the bluff is. And I don't even know. Only Adam and the bluff know right now who the bluff is.
I hold the secret knowledge. How are we going to track what round we're in, Chris?
Because right above my head on screen, Adam's about to pop up the round tracker 9000. There it is. And there are 9 dots in that round tracker, 1 for each historian for each of the 3 rounds. And as we go from round to round, those dots will be filled in accordingly as each historian tells her or his story for that round. So no further ado, Adam, let's get right to it. Let's go to round number 1.
Here we go.
Okay.
And we're here at round number 1, just as you
are
asked.
indeed in round number 1. Thank you for that commercial break. We are going to go in the order of Adri, Melissa, and Billy. So each of you, again, have 75 seconds in this first round to tell us the opening premise of your story. And Adri, I'm going to turn the center spot over to you. You hear the gong. You have 75 seconds to tell your story.
Okay. All right. We're getting going. So this love story stars 2 people named Shah Jahan and Arjuman Banu Begum, later known as Prince Khurram and Mumtaz Mahal. He was the son of Jahangir, the 4th Mughal emperor of India, and the grandson of Akbar the Great. And she was a Muslim Persian princess. In 1607, when Shah Jahan was 14 years old, he was strolling down the Meena Bazaar, which I think is just like a street, while accompanied by his groupies, and he saw Arjuman Banu Begum like across the street, and she was wearing a silk attire and like glass beads, and for him it was love at first sight. After meeting her, Shah Jahan went back to his father and declared that was the woman he wanted to marry, and they married 5 years later in 1612. In 1628, Shah Jahan became the emperor and entrusted Arjuman Banu with the royal shield. He also gave her the name Mumtaz Mahal, and which meant the jewel of the palace. So I'll explain how important she was in round 2.
All right. Well done. Well done. Let's hear from our other historians their take on Adri's opening round. So, Melissa, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Adrian's story?
Yeah, pretty straightforward so far. It's kind of a cute meet story, like boy meets girl, and I'm waiting to see what other kind of pearls of wisdom Adri's going to drop about the jewel of story. There you go.
All right.
I almost said tromboned that, but I
hold that thought, Adam. But Billy, what about you? What did you think of Adri's opening round?
Sounded like 50% of the rom-coms that are on, Oxygen or any of those channels. So it's really hard to see if she's lying or telling the truth.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, props. I feel like she said the names right. So very good pronunciation on those. Very, hard to say names. So
Okay.
Fake it till
All
you're
right.
fluent is
That's
what
right.
I say.
They, and I'm sure they were not hard to say for the people who had those names.
No.
The one, I just thought it was a very interesting opening, Adri, and I thought you mowed down those facts once you talked about Jahandir. So.
Oh.
That gets a trombone.
No
right?
way! I loved it. I'm opinionated.
Well, thank you, Adam. All right. So we are now going to move to historian number 2 because you see above me here, the Round Tracker 9000. The first dot is filled in as Adri has told her story in round 1. So now we move to Melissa. Melissa is going to come to the center. Now, Melissa, when you hear the boom and you see the sundial, you have 75 seconds, and the floor is yours.
All right. So, could humans survive in a self-sustaining, man-made habitat? 8 people, 8 researchers set out to answer that question in 1991. And the project was called Biosphere 2. Now, it's called Biosphere 2 because the Biosphere 1 is actually just planet Earth. And so they called this project Biosphere 2. It was this massive complex with that was 3 acres. It had this glass dome-like structure, and it took like millions of dollars to make and 4 years to actually create the whole system. It was in the middle of the desert in Arizona, and it had different biomes that mimicked Earth's biomes, like wetlands, rainforest, desert, coral reef, farmlands, a house. And the idea was that they could completely live in this enclosed space and recycle oxygen, carbon dioxide. They could create all the food they needed and survive for 2 years. Which, if it worked, would be amazing for science, not only to learn about ecosystems, but also potentially space colonies. So they had all this press. The Smithsonian was behind it at one point. And on September 26, 1991, they went into the biosphere.
Okay. Into the biosphere. Sounds like a movie on the channel that Billy mentioned earlier. Billy, what did you think of Melissa's opening story?
Earth is Biosphere 1. News to me. What?
Yeah.
I've been saying it wrong my whole life.
Yes. Yeah, it's spelled EARTH, but it's pronounced Biosphere 1, apparently. And
Where you know.
Adri, what about you? What did you think of Melissa's story?
Well, I'm not ready to make a full accusation, but it's a lot like this classic movie starring Pauly Shore and Billy Baldwin or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if art imitating life or life imitating art. I don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta
Good
say.
question. You never know here on History Bluffs.
You never know.
Yeah. Apparently when they did make that movie, Pauly Shore was really nervous about it. He's a little bit claustrophobic, so they got him to do some meditation to get comfortable going in there. And they said, "Well, what how did that help?" And he said, "By ohms."
Yep. You warned me to get ready for that.
I knew one was coming.
Ready.
That may not be the only one. All right,
Cheers.
so we have dots filled in for Adri's opening round, Melissa's opening round. That leaves Billy. So, Billy, come on out. We're going to switch spots, you and I. And when you hear the boom and you see the sundial, you have 75 seconds for your opening round story. The floor is yours.
Awesome. So, those who know me know I went to Italy, and I won't shut up about it. So, this story, of course, has been inspired by something I personally saw, which is the St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City, which is the largest church in the world. But this story is actually going to be about a church that was meant to be the largest, but it never got finished being built. And that was in Sicily, Palermo to be exact. If you have any knowledge of Italian history, Italy wasn't Italy until 1861, so everything was kind of just a region, and Sicily is an island, so like most islands in the Mediterranean, they were ravaged for thousands and thousands of years, being conquered by this and conquered by that. So Sicily never really identified as a Roman culture. Romans owned them at one point, but also so did the French and the Spanish and sometimes Africa, the Byzantine, so on and so forth. So St. Peter's was started being built in the 1500s. It took 120 years to be built by Michelangelo, who died during it. 120 years, 1626 is when it was constructed. And what you know, Sicily, wanting to be better than the rest of Rome, decided to build a church themselves called the Cathedral of Santa Rosalia, and I'll tell you more about that later.
Okay. Promise of more information coming in the next couple of rounds. So, Adri, what did you think?
Is quick.
Yes, it is. What did you think of Billy's opening round?
Nothing so far. Nothing to question. Everything sounds legitimate. History facts straight up and down. So we'll see about round 2 and 3.
All right. And Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, kind of like this dome that's in the progress of being built. I also feel like Billy's story is a work in progress. So I did learn a lot about Italy's like rise and fall of different things, but I'm waiting to hear about the dome. I'm waiting for the dome.
All right, yes, and for those of you either watching or listening, you know when I am on the other side, sitting in the historian seat, I frequently tell stories about European aspects, and I can speak to Sicily in particular. When Billy mentioned that it was being attacked frequently and overrun frequently, and they finally got him to stop when they all got together and they said, this is silly.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Oh.
It's right next to the sad trombone. I can see it either way.
Sad trombone.
My God.
All right. Hey, other than my bad jokes ending, that also ends our round number 1.
It sure does.
Adam, that means we have to go round number 2.
Let's go straight to round number 2. Here we are. 2 rounds
round 2.
are
Welcome
now
back.
on board.
Welcome back to round number 2. The rounds get shorter, as I mentioned earlier, so now we're down to 60 seconds per round for each of our historians, and we are going to jump right back into it. Adri will get you in here into the center square, and you have 60 seconds now when you hear the boom, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so though Shah Jahan had other wives, like many other wives, Mumtaz Mahal was his favorite and accompanied him everywhere, even on like military campaigns. He was a part of the palace life. Like she was top wife. Unfortunately, in 1631, when she was giving birth to their 14th child, she died due to complications. And while Mumtaz was on her deathbed, Shah Jahan promised her that he would never remarry and would build the richest mausoleum over her grave. It's said that Shah Jahan was so heartbroken after her death that he ordered the court and the country to go into mourning for 2 full years. And sometime after her death, Shah Jahan undertook the task of erecting the world's most beautiful monument in the memory of his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. So I will tell you more about what he built for her in round 3.
Okay, well done. Thank you for that, Adri. Melissa, we'll come back to you. What did you think of round number 2 and the deathbed promise that he would never marry again, even though he had the asterisk because he already had several other wives already in
right.
He had backups.
I mean, 14 children. Is that right? 14?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
right.
like that's deserving of a monument in and of itself.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. So
yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling.
That's true, absolutely true. Billy, what do you think?
I believe she said he had many wives also,
yes,
right?
Yes.
It's hard to believe that he would go so lavish over just one that died if he had so many. It sounded like a reality show worth of wives. So for him.
Yes, the only thing they were missing back then. The only thing they were missing back then was the TVs for the reality show. But he did, say though that it was his favorite wife. Although I can tell you, I said that to my ex-wife and it didn't work, so I don't know if it worked for her either. But let's see. All right, moving on. We are going to go to Melissa. Melissa and I are going to switch spots here. And when Melissa hears the boom and sees the sundial, she will have 60 seconds for this round number 2.
All right, so the 2 years did not go as planned. In fact, just a couple weeks into the voyage into the biosphere, fun fact, the researchers were called biospherians for this whole project. But just a couple weeks in, somebody gets injured, like they slice their finger while cooking, and they have to be taken out of the biosphere in order to get medical treatment. And when she went back in, she actually brought a duffel bag, which some people say was maybe had some food. And then to make another issue with the whole thing, they had dietary issues. A bunch of them lost 16% was the average amount of weight lost in Biosphere 2 because it was such a low calorie diet. And they actually had to dip into reserves of seeds. Then finally, one of the big problems was the O2 and CO2 cycling didn't work. They had to install a carbon dioxide scrubber like what they use in submarines in order to just survive.
Okay.
Wow.
We had a scrub to survive. Billy, what do you think of Melissa's second round story on the Biospherians?
It's hard to believe that we came up with such a crappy project and it just didn't work. If I cut my finger and had to leave the sphere, it'd probably be on the first day while cooking. So I would not last just like that lady did not. So
Okay. All right. Adrian, what do you think?
So it's interesting because the whole biosphere was meant to kind of like replicate Earth, right? So for the whole carbon dioxide and oxygen thing, wouldn't the plants and trees that were in there work like the way that they're supposed to? That's the one thing that stood out to me as questionable.
Okay. All right. So a man-made object not working is questionable. Okay, indeed. Well thought out. Billy, come on up here. You and I are going to switch spots. You're going to get the main square here. And when you see the sundial and hear the boom, you have 60 seconds for your round number 2.
okay, here comes Italian, the best it can be. The church that was lost is Cattedrale di Santa Rosalia del Palermo. The Church of Santa Rosalia in Palermo, Sicily. She is the protector of Palermo. This is because back in 1624, they found the relics of her. And then in 1625, there was a plague that was wiping out Sicilians day after day. So they turned to these relics. And when they went to the relics, 1626, the plague just vanished. It was gone. So that is why she is the protector of Palermo. So that is the saint they honored in the church that they wanted to build. To give you a frame of reference, St. Peter's Basilica is 23,000 square meters. To up that a little bit, the Sicilians were going to make this new church 26,000 square meters, just to really stick it to them Romans. What can we say quickly? Yep, no, I'm going to save the rest for the last 30.
That is the end of the round.
Saving the rest for the last. Okay. So we now have an opportunity to hear from Melissa. Melissa, what did you think of Billy's second round story?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm with you so far. I think, I feel like you're giving me a lot of facts right now about this dome, and I'm waiting for some sort of foundation to start crumbling here. And so I think maybe that last part. There you go.
Okay. All right. All right. Adrian, what do you think?
I'm really questioning the timeline. So in 24, they found her relic. In 25, something else happened. And then 26, or was it 25, the plague hit, and then 26, everything was fine. So I don't know. It seems really convenient. But also a good explanation. If she's the protector, she showed up at the right time.
Okay. Yeah. Questioning some dates. All right. So we now, Adam, have all 3 of the dots complete in the round tracker 9000 for round number 2, which means it's time for round number 3.
Let's take it home to round number 3. Oh, that smells like the final round.
It does indeed. Welcome back to the home stretch, the final round. Here we are, the last turn for each of our historians. Now, as we said earlier, each of them get 45 seconds to wrap up their story. And we will hear the conclusions of their stories here in this third and final round, after which we will then try amongst ourselves to figure out who is tonight's bluff. So, Adri, we'll come back to you. 45 seconds to conclude your story about Mumtaz Mahal and Shah Jahan.
Yes. All right. So at the end of section 2 or round 2, Mumtaz had passed away, and Shahan had promised to build a beautiful mausoleum for her. The mausoleum that he ended up building took 22 years to build and more than 22,000 workers to construct. The monument and the gardens, which are on 55 acres of property. When Shah Jahan died in 1666, which is about, I don't know, like 30 years later, his body was placed in the tomb next to Mumtaz, and the magnificent monument eventually came to be known as Taj Mahal. And it's now one of the 7 wonders of the world and is considered a living example of eternal love. You can find it in India.
Okay. The Taj Mahal in India. Billy, what did you think of Adri's conclusion of her story there?
I don't know. Not a convincing love story to me. That's all I gotta say to that. And I can't see a single world wonder, so I can't fact check on that. So I'm just gonna have to believe it, I suppose.
All right, Melissa, what about you?
It's so sweet. I disagree. I think it's very sweet. It took 22 years to build this act of love. It makes me wonder, connecting with Billy's story, though, if there was like another city in India where they were aiming for like a 23-year long build just to one up it a little bit. But I don't know. I want it to be true. It's sweet.
Yeah. Yes, it is indeed sweet. All right. Well, thank you, Adri, for wrapping up your story. We'll hear some more comments and some theses later on from our other historians on whether they believe you or not. But with that, Melissa, we're going to come to you. You and I are going to switch spots, and you have 45 seconds to conclude your story about the Biospherians and what happened when they brought in a duffel bag.
All right, so the public was kind of scrutinizing the project at this point, and in the words of one of the Biospherians wrote a memoir afterwards, said that at this point they were suffocating, starved, and they'd gone mad. They'd been fighting within the closed space, not physically, but just like factions were forming. So long story short, it did last the full 2 years, but it was considered kind of a failure. And if you dig deeper, the origins of the project were doomed from the beginning, because it was actually made, the idea started in the 60s and 70s by a group of people that just thought the Earth was doomed in general and that the biosphere was going to be their holding spot. So the University of Arizona owns the Biosphere 2 now, and they use it for ecological research. And 2 of the Biospherians got married.
All right. Wow. Well, speaking of sweet love stories, let's see. Adri, what did you think of that conclusion from Melissa?
I think it's very interesting, especially 2 people being married after that experience. It's kind of like being in like a pandemic quarantine. Very, very like tight-roomed pandemic experience. I can't speak today.
Takes us back to 2020. Oh.
Yes, indeed.
Obviously, Trump.
Harkens back to 2020, the days of the pandemic. All right, Billy, what about you?
What pandemic was Biosphere 3, I think.
Yeah, true.
I think it's a true story. I feel like it's an easy story to sprinkle some little non-factual items in because it's such a disaster. I feel like there's a lot of fun to be had with that story. So I'm just questioning what's real and what's not real. That's all. What is life, you know?
Okay. All right. What is life indeed? We will find out at the end of this round. But to get to the end of this round, we have one more historian to conclude their story, and that is Billy. But before I do that, Adri, did I get you a chance to comment on Melissa?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought so. But then I didn't. So, Billy, we're going to bring you back out. You're going to switch spots with me. And when you see the sundial and you hear the boom, you have 45 seconds to conclude your third round of your story about the St. Peter's Basilica that was upstaged by the Santa Rosa Ria in Palermo.
Okay, to keep Melissa and everyone happy, let me talk about how it got destroyed. 1693. I like dates. There was a giant, massive earthquake that southeastern Sicily that killed, unfortunately, 60,000 people, which is a sad fact. But that also created many tsunamis that just destroyed all of the coast of Sicily, even reached out to Malta, some other islands. And as you know, Palermo is on the coast. So that was what destroyed and beyond repair the church they were building. And that was 1626 it started getting built. So they made almost 70 years. St. Peter's took 120 years. They were kind of getting to that finish line, I would imagine. But unfortunately, that church will never be built.
Never built, never finished. Another tsunami. All right. Melissa, what did you think of the conclusion of Billy's story about Santa Rosalia in Palermo?
Yeah, I hate to throw a brick in the mud there, but like it just feels like kind of like the actual basilica that he's describing himself, that the story feels unfinished. Like I feel like people would have gone back in and kept going if they were that dedicated to the project. 70 years is a long amount of time to just be like, oh well,
Well, apparently they had a good union. They got paid anyway. So, Adrian, what did
Unions,
you think?
am I right?
Yeah, I'm with Melissa on that. It's weird that they just kind of gave up. Also, I can't help but think Sicilians are kind of known for being on the sketchy side. Like, what if they, hadn't finished paying off their debtors, and those people came around and were like, hey, this church hasn't been paid for, and then the church, you know what I mean?
He just mafiaed all Sicilians.
I was just about to say, Adam, just for clarification, the management of History Bluffs does not necessarily agree with all the opinions expressed by historians during the show.
We just lost all of our Sicilian stream watchers.
She meant some Sicilians, not necessarily
Some
all
Sicilians, not all of them. I've watched a lot of movies lately, and that's where my mind went.
Godfather doesn't count.
I would hate for the Sicilians of 1600s to sound just like they do in New York now.
It'd be amazing.
It'd be a sad history.
Hey, welcome to the Mediterranean. You want a hot dog?
How you doing, sweetheart? How you doing?
And street meat's in the back.
That's right. Exactly. All right. Well, if you look straight above here on this image that you see on your screen, and for those of you listening, if you listen to my description of the image that is right above me on the screen, you would see all three of the dots in all three of the rounds are completed, which means that all 9 slots of the stories for the show have been filled in, meaning we now know all we're going to know about these 3 stories. It is time to find out who is tonight's bluff. And as I said at the top of the show, I don't even know. Only Adam and the bluff themselves know. So let's go around the horn and let's hear some hypotheses and hear some accusations of who we think is bluffing. So, Adrian, I'm going to start with you. Tell us what you think and who is the bluff.
Yeah, so I'm torn because Melissa's round 1 was spot on to the movie that I described earlier, but round 2 and 3, I do not remember that being in the movie that I was talking about. So I'm really not sure if they based the movie off that experience, but then she didn't reference it. So, And then Billy's story is very on par with like an actual historical event, but Billy's also a first-time historian tonight, which could be a tactic by Adam to throw us off.
Okay.
Do I need to make my accusation right now? I know
Yes,
I'm not new,
this is
but
the
how
time.
does this work? Okay.
This is the time.
I'm gonna go with Melissa. My gut is telling me
Okay.
Melissa's the bluff.
We have an accusation of Melissa being the bluff. All right. Melissa, we are going to turn to you now. Let us know your thoughts on the other 2 stories and who do you think is the bluff?
Yeah, so both stories had a lot of details. I will say that Adri's story, I feel like I have heard something. It's about a wedding and a bride that's ringing a few bells, wedding bells, in my brain. So points on that. And Billy had a lot of dates. That's good. And I think
Thank you.
I also feel like he could be constructing some other things besides the truth. So I'm gonna go with Billy.
Billy, all right. So we have one accusation for Melissa, one accusation for Billy. Billy, we come to you now. Tell us what you think about the other two stories, and who do you think might be the bluff?
Chris, I can't vote for you, right?
You can if you want.
Okay. No, I'm gonna go. Adri seemed short and sweet and simple, so I feel like it's true. It's just a nice story, a story that happened. Melissa's, I think most of that was true, but I think that maybe she spiced it up a little bit in certain areas, or made it worse than it sounded, or better than it sounded. I don't know. I think it's a true story with some bluffs littered out throughout it.
So you're saying you think Melissa is the bluff?
Yes, and because she thinks I am, so I just gotta.
Fair's fair. Fair is fair.
So.
In true Sicilian manner, it's called revenge. Venganza.
Yo, with a hot dog. Hey, forget about it.
All right.
Well, I'm taking your legs.
Exactly. Just a quick thing from me, only because we have a little bit of time. I'm going to jump in and say, the story about the Taj Mahal, again, had a lot of great facts in there and very lovely story. Adri, to follow your hypothesis on Melissa's theme, Pauly Shore movie in round number one. The movie you're looking for, round number two, was a Joe Pesci movie, Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag. She mentioned duffel bag. And then in round number three, it lasted 2 years, but deemed kind of a failure. Pretty much any U.S. congressperson could be, put in that category. And so lots of truth from there. And then Billy talk about St. Peter's Basilica was the largest in the world, but overcome by the size of Santa Rosalia in Palermo as intended to be constructed. And then conveniently, a tsunami came in 1693 and wiped out the church. So this is tough. I'm going to guess. I'm also going to jump on the bandwagon. I'm going to say I think Melissa may be bluffing.
Wow,
even though I don't get a vote. That's just my opinion, and it's probably wrong.
You don't get it. Yeah, but your opinion's voiced, but it doesn't count in the ballot.
It's right. Yes, I'm not worth anything.
That's right. All right. Well, Chris, I think it's
Adam,
time.
I'm going to turn over to you. Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Step off the virtual stage. I'm going to line up the bluff potentials, and I'm going to reveal now for all of the audience, was your bluff about Dome, was it Adri? Could it have been Melissa? Was it Billy? I hold the knowledge. Prepare yourselves. The bluff for the entire show. It was Billy!
Oh my gosh.
Good call, Adri. You suspected.
Could have trusted my gut.
Should have trusted your gut and not trusted me.
Yes, good call, Melissa. Well done. You sniffed it out. All right. Well, let's see. Let's go run horn here. Adri, what? Any other facts you get a chance to tell us about the Taj Mahal?
No, I got nothing for you.
Nothing.
Nice.
That's as far as she researched.
That
was literally it. Yeah.
Melissa, what about you? Anything on the biospherians, which is just fun to say?
It's fun to say. Yeah, there's like a lot of really cool engineering stuff that basically to construct it because of they were super careful about the temperature because that would cause things to contract and expand. But the oxygen CO2, the leaks got out. And also the guy's name, his name was Johnny Dolphin, which I think is a great name that I don't think I peppered in there.
I think if you had peppered that in there, we all would have thought that was a bluff.
I know.
Yeah. Good call keeping the dolphin guy out.
Yeah. All right.
I remember. Oh, real quick, Chris. I remember the biosphere story. That was yeah. So when that was mentioned, I'm like, oh, but I didn't say anything because that would have been cheating.
Right. And also, I don't remember many of the details, but I remember kind of hearing about it. But and then Billy, well done with the bluff. What inspired you to use some of that history of Sicilian kind of events, should we say, from the 17th century?
Well, I made the whole thing up.
Perfect.
It never existed. I will tell you what is factual. I did go to Italy.
There you go. All right, that's right.
Oh.
That's true.
That's when I heard that the topic was domes, I immediately thought of St. Peter's Basilica, which is the largest church in the world.
Yeah.
It did take 120 years to build, so that is factual.
Mm.
Michelangelo did die during it. Sicily did get hit with a plague. All those dates were correct. Santa Rosalia is the protector of Palermo. The earthquake that killed a lot of people was also true, unfortunately.
Oh.
But it didn't wipe out no church because I made the whole thing up. So, yeah.
But if we look in the insurance archives, perhaps there might have been an insurance claim made in 1693. We'll see.
Yeah.
It was.
All right, Adam. Adam, we are out of time. I'm going to hand the show back to you and tell us where we go from here.
All right, you got it, Chris. Thanks so much for hosting this show. I want to give a big thanks to our historians, Adri, Melissa, and of course, Billy. Thank you for joining us. And we are History Bluffs. You can watch us every week on Twitch and YouTube, and you can hear our audio version of the podcast where you get your podcasts. Have a wonderful rest of your week.